Okay, let's try this for the third time. I am still learning my technology. Okay, so operations with real numbers. Okay, more review pretty much. There we go. So today's objective is to add and subtract real numbers, multiply and divide real numbers. All simple operations we can do, right? Okay, so remember when we used number lines to add and subtract numbers? When we were way back in, I don't know, maybe sixth grade, we probably did this. We said -4, here it is on the number line, -4, and we need to go 5 spaces, and we went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and where did that get us? Well, it got us to 1, so the answer there was 1. -2 minus a -6. Again, very tedious, but it's going to get us to 4. So, obviously, this can be quite tedious, but there's a better way because we've got a definition for absolute value. Do you remember what that is? Let me see if I can find my pen. There we go. The absolute value of a number is the distance from 0 on a number line. Okay, so the absolute value of 5 is written as the absolute value. See, I've got those lines on both sides. That's the absolute value of 5. Likewise, I've got the absolute value of -5 is also 5 because it is also 5 units away from 0. So both 5 and -5, the absolute value is the same, 5. Okay, so now we're talking about adding real numbers. So we've got two situations. We're adding numbers with the same sign. We're going to add their absolute values and use the sign of the numbers. So let's say we're adding -3 and -2. Well, we've got the same sign. They're both negative, so we add their absolute values. Absolute value of -3 is 3. Absolute value of -2 is 2. So the solution here is 5, except that it says I'm supposed to use the sign of the numbers. So my answer is actually going to be a -5. Hope that makes sense. Okay, then we've got numbers with different signs. So we're going to find the difference of their absolute values, then use the sign of the number with the larger absolute value. Okay, so I've got something like -3 plus 17. Well, I've got two different signs here, so I'm going to take the absolute value of both of those, and I'm going to subtract. So 17 is my bigger number, so I'm going to say 17 minus the absolute value of -3 is 3. So that's going to give me a 14. And notice the larger of the absolute values is the positive number, so my answer is also going to be positive. Let's just do a quick example where my absolute value is larger. -25 plus 5. I've got different signs, so I've got 25 minus 5 is 20. Only notice the 25 is the greater value, had a negative sign, so it's going to be a -20. So let's do a couple of examples on the next slide. All right, so go ahead and pause the video and check to see if you have the right answers by starting the video up again. All right, so we had same sign, add the absolute values, we get 12, both are negative, so the answer is -12. Here we've got different signs, we take the difference between the two and take the one with the larger absolute value, so we're going to get a positive 8.2. That should be a decimal there. And then -17 and a positive 35, absolute value, find the difference, it's going to be a positive 18. Okay, now when we're subtracting real numbers, subtraction isn't always as much fun as addition, so another way of thinking about it is subtracting a number is the same as adding its opposite. Okay, so once we add the opposite, then we're back to addition and we just follow those same rules that we just went over, right? So I've got 14 minus 21, which is really the same as, oops, didn't mean to do that, which is really the same as 14 plus, instead of this being a positive, it's going to be a negative 21. So hopefully you agree that 14 minus 21 is the same as 14 plus a negative 21. Okay, again, difference of signs. So we're going to take the absolute value, difference of the absolute values, 21 minus 14 is 7. And because the 21 has the larger absolute value, I've got a negative 7 as my answer. Okay, and again, adding the opposite means I've got 1/2, and I'm going to add, here I had a negative, so this time I'm going to add a positive 7/2, and so 7/2 and 1/2 is going to be 8/2, and so my final answer is going to be 4. Okay, should make sense. All right, here's my real world application. Yay, you're going to find that I have lots of real world applications. Don't know if they're actually real world or not, but we're going to consider them so. So an iceberg extends 75 feet above the sea. The bottom of the iceberg is at an elevation of negative 247 feet. What's the height of the iceberg? Okay, here's a suggestion, and this one's a pretty simple problem, but I'm still asking you to think about this. I've got an iceberg. It's in the ocean. That's my ocean. You'll know right away that I am quite a Picasso. All right, so somewhere up here at 75 feet is the tip of my iceberg. Then it's going to come way down here. And somewhere down here at the bottom is the bottom of it at negative 247 feet. Okay, so we're being asked to find the height of the iceberg. Well, let's think about this. I know that I'm starting at 75 and I'm finding the difference because I want the elevation from a positive number to a negative number. I need the difference. So I'm looking at 75 minus negative 247. Remember, we're adding the opposite. So 75 plus 247 is 322 feet. Think about it. That should be a positive number, right? The height of this is not going to be a negative number. So if you had subtracted 247 from 75, that would have given you a really strange result. Okay? All right. Multiplying and dividing real numbers. Okay, I'm sure you guys remember this, but I'm going to go over it really quickly. When you multiply or divide two numbers, the signs of the numbers you're multiplying determine whether the product or quotient, if you're dividing obviously, is positive or negative. So if I've got both factors are positive, my product or quotient is going to be positive. 2, you'd think I'd get this at this point, sorry. 6 divided by 2 equals 3. My quotient is positive, both of these are positive. 1 negative. So I've got 6 divided by negative 2. My answer is negative 3. Both are negative. That means my result is positive. Negative 6 divided by negative 2 gives me a positive 3. Okay, hopefully you guys remember those rules. So here are some examples. Go ahead and pause the video real quick, find the answers, and then check back and make sure you got them correct. Okay, 1/2 times a negative 10 is negative 5. Negative 48 divided by negative 4 is 12. And negative 3x, if x equals 2/3. So I am going to write this part out. Negative 3, and I'm substituting in for x 2/3. Okay, so my answer is going to be negative 2. All right, so here's I need to let you guys know I've got 2 videos posted on my website from Khan Academy. They are on multiplying and dividing fractions and mixed numbers. If you have forgotten or are a little rusty on multiplying and dividing fractions and mixed numbers, please go to the online algebra videos and check out those 2 Khan Academy videos because we're not going to spend any time in class working on that, but you do need to know how to do that. Okay? Here we go. 2 numbers are reciprocals if their product is 1. If I take, if I take 2/3 and 3/2, and I multiply those, notice I get 6/6 or 1, right? So these are reciprocals. I've just flipped the numerator and the denominator. A number and its reciprocal are called multiplicative inverses. And I am going to want you to write those two words down. If I put a vocabulary word and underline it, that's something you should be putting in your notes. Multiplicative inverse. So to divide by a number, you can multiply by its multiplicative inverse. All right, we hate dividing, right? Because it can get really ugly sometimes, especially when we start getting into those fractions. Ew. So an easier way of dealing with that is to go back to multiplication, because we all know how to do that. To get back to multiplication, we're going to use the multiplicative inverse. So here I've got a very simple problem. 10 divided by 5 equals 2, but 10, if I remember, I can multiply by the multiplicative inverse, or the reciprocal of 5. That's going to be 1/5, and 10 times 1/5 also is going to give me 2, same value. And this is going to come in really handy when we're using really ugly fractions when we're trying to solve equations. So please be comfortable with this. All right, I've got a couple of examples. And again, please pause the video, work out these two examples, and then check your work. Oops. There you go. There are the problems. All right. So I've got -1/2, and I'm going to have -1/2. So you should have all this work written out, I hope. Times -6/5, correct? So I have a positive 6/10, which I will simplify to give me 3/5. So my final answer should be 3/5. If you have written 6/10, that answer is wrong, even though it has the same value, because it is not simplified. I'm going to write that over here because you need to remember. Simplify. Very important. Okay. 8/9 divided by -2 and 2/3. You obviously need to change this into an improper fraction and then find its reciprocal. So 8/9 divided by -2 and 2/3 is going to give you a -1/3. Again, if you don't know how to do this, please watch the video on the Khan Academy videos that I put on my website, or come and talk to me. All right, so properties of zero. Properties of zero. If I'm multiplying by 0, I get 0 as my result. So if I'm multiplying a number 1/2 or -17 by 0, answer is 0. Same goes if I'm multiplying by a variable. Here's the algebra part of that, right? This could be an x times 0 or a y times 0. Still going to give me 0. If 0 is divided by a number, also equals 0. So if I have 0/6, that's 0. I don't have anything. I have no sixths. 0 divided by 2/3 is also 0. And again, that holds for any variable. All right, here though, this is a little bit different. And I am going to ask you to write part of this down. Division by 0 is undefined. Please write down the word undefined, and actually probably write the whole thing. But division by 0 is undefined, because you will have results that are undefined and you need to write that as such. If you say that 12 divided by 0 is 0, you are wrong, and it'll get marked wrong, because 12 divided by 0, it is undefined. It cannot be calculated. Find that out. Try it on your calculator. See what you get when you get 12 divided by 0. It should give you an error message. And that's the same if we're using a variable. A divided by 0 or x divided by 0 is still undefined. Okay, so here's some examples. Again, pause your video, please, and then come back and check and see if you got the right answers. Okay, -22 divided by 0 is undefined. -8.45 times 0 is 0. 0 divided by 15 is 0. And 0 divided by 0, doesn't matter that it's 0, it's still being divided by 0, so it is undefined. PEMDAS. parentheses. Notice I have a G there. The G is for grouping symbols. We don't always see parentheses. Sometimes you're going to get something that looks like this, the brackets, or like this. Those are also grouping symbols, so those come first. Then we've got our exponents. Multiplication and division, remember, happen at the same time from left to right, and addition and subtraction, again, from left to right. If any of that doesn't ring a bell, please check in with me. I'll find a Khan Academy video for you to watch. All right, I've got some examples on the next page. I'm going to show you this one, how I'm going to expect to see your work, okay? So I've got 2 plus 25 minus 9 divided by 3. Well, the order of operations tells me I need to deal with this part first because all of this was addition and subtraction, but I do have division, which takes precedence. So 9 divided by 3 is 3. I'm going to write out the rest of the equation. Then I just have addition and subtraction, so I'm going to start over here on the left. 2 plus 25 is 27. I'm subtracting a 3, so that equals 24. Okay, and I do want to see you do your steps because it's so easy to forget and do the wrong operation first. Okay, so please be sure to show those. All right, and I goofed up. I put the answers here, but I'm going to leave those up. I'd like you to go through and calculate those and see if you come up with the same answers that I have right there. Okay, so take a minute, write those down. Make sure you check your math. This is what I'm going to expect to see in your notebook, that you've gone through these and worked through them step by step and come up with the same solutions. All right, that was your second video. Hopefully this all makes sense. We're going to start moving on to the distributive property, I believe, tomorrow. So anyway, looking forward to seeing y'all in class.